Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and this weekend I read Tartuffe by Molière, translated by Richard Wilbur, who I don't often talk about translators. Richard Wilbur to me is one of the most amazing translators. The fact that he takes classical French drama and reproduces rhymed couplets in English shows his ability both as a student of French literature and as a poet in the English language. I think he is just a fascinating poet and translator, and I don't know that he got quite enough attention, despite being a poet laureate. I don't know that he got quite enough attention as he maybe deserved in his lifetime, and I always appreciate the fact that he translated these works. They're fantastic. Molière's comedy is fantastic. Wilbur's translations into English are excellent. So, Tartuffe, the Francophile Reader is running a Molière in May readathon, in which every Sunday in May she hosts sort of a live stream centered around one of Molière's texts. I'll link to her video below. A lot of it really focuses on the idea of censorship and criticizing it and trying to understand why censorship exists, if there could be a useful purpose for it. I'm not going to talk too much about that. This play famously was censored twice. So it was originally written in 1664. Molière was part of the French classical drama that flourished under Louis XIV's reign. So before his time, Corneille had developed some tragedies, famously Le Cid, and Molière really focused on comedy, sort of like in that passing the torch. And then he helped mentor Jean Racine, who returned to tragedy all throughout Louis XIV's reign. Those three dramatists kind of moved through his extremely long reign. And I don't want to get into Louis XIV, like was he a bad monarch or a good monarch, or is it possible to be a good monarch? I don't want to talk about that. I want to focus on the text. So Tartuffe premieres in 1664. It's immediately like, what the heck? You can't say that. So it's pulled. There are no extant copies of that print. If only that library of books. It is revised by Molière. In 1667, it is reproduced in premieres. Again, you can't say that. You can't say that. So 2 years later, we finally get the text that has come down to us today. And despite whatever revisions exist, there are theories that maybe those earlier productions were only part of the play we have, that Act 5 didn't exist at the time. This is still a tremendous play. It is imperfect, but it is incredibly tremendous. It is very vital. I'll say that. So, quick rundown of what's going on. Orgon, he has a pair of children who seem to be like young adults, or older adolescents. They seem, though, to be portrayed as young adults. He has remarried after the death of their mother. He has remarried a woman named Elmira. And he has a brother-in-law. His new wife's brother-in-law is sort of a like wise guy, is kind of how he's characterized. He often is presented as sort of this like voice of reason. And then there is his daughter's maid. His daughter's in love with a man named Valery. His daughter's maid, who's probably the funniest character in the play. And his wife, of course, is a very interesting and fascinating character as well. And then there's Tartuffe. So who the heck is Tartuffe? Tartuffe is the reason for all of the controversy around this. Tartuffe's later subtitles to the play in those revisions included L'imposteur. He's an imposter. Tartuffe has come down to become a colloquial word in French for hypocrite. He's a hypocrite. So he's a scumbag. He is a liar. He is reprehensible. I was wearing my shark tie anyways for my math lessons today. But I wore my shark tie because Tartuffe is like a shark swimming among fish. He's just a bad guy. So the controversy around Tartuffe is presented as this very pious, deeply religious. He's given away everything to the poor. And we hear all of this multiple times before Tartuffe ever sets foot on the stage. So in the early act, Tartuffe is nowhere to be seen. We just hear about this guy. It's a very effective dramatic technique. It reminds me a little bit of the film The Third Man, where we keep hearing about this Harry Lime, and then we're finally in, who's supposed to be dead, and then we're in, there's this pan up in a doorway, and you suddenly see this dramatic entrance for this character, and that's kind of how Tartuffe functions as a character within this play. Is he's presented through everybody else's words. We hear there are some who respect him, there are some who think he's an absolute reprobate and a liar and a flatterer. So that's sort of Tartuffe. And that seems to be where most of the controversy was this idea of, can you represent a person who pretends to be pious as being a hypocrite and being disingenuous and deceitful and an adulterer and all sorts of things. So the answer, of course, is yes. And I think it's one reason that Tartuffe retains a sense of vitality to modern readers, is we still see charlatans, we still see hucksters who claim to be what they are not, to a degree that sometimes Tartuffe is confronted with things he's said or done, and he flat out just sort of is like, well, you could say whatever you want about me. Of course they're going to say that about me. I can't. And it might seem familiar to modern readers for a variety of reasons around that. He's very much a charlatan, and charlatans still exist. But to get into the play a little bit, some reasons, some interesting lines, and some interesting themes. One is that the play is Molière is very careful to never say that the church is bad, or religion is bad, or religious belief is bad. He's very clear in focusing on, there are good religious people, and then there's Tartuffe, and Tartuffe is, an SOB. And so we have Cleante, who's the brother-in-law, who sort of is the wise guy, but is presented as a more rational individual. And he goes, the injustice there is nothing I more revere than a soul whose faith is steadfast and sincere. Nothing that I more cherish and admire than honest zeal and true religious fire. So there is nothing that I find more base than specious piety's dishonest face. Than these bold mountebanks, these histrios, whose impious mummeries and hollow shows exploit our love of heaven and make a jest of all that men think holiest and best. Those calculating souls who offer prayers, not to their Maker, but as public wares, and seek to buy respect and reputation with lifted eyes and sighs of exultation. These charlatans, I say, whose pilgrim souls proceed by way of heaven toward earthly goals, who weep and pray and swindle and extort, who preach the monkish life, but haunt the court, who make their zeal the partner of their vice. Such men are vengeful, sly, and cold as ice. And so we can see the character who ostensibly is represented as attacking Tartuffe or attacking the church is very clear in saying there are those who truly are religious and are good and care. And he goes on to list some people, who their virtue is acknowledged and who could doubt it. But you won't hear them beat the drum about it. They're never ostentatious, never vain, and their religion's moderate and humane. It's not their way to criticize and chide. They think censoriousness a mark of pride. And therefore, letting others preach and rave, they show by deeds how Christians should behave. And I think that's an important passage within the play, is that this is not an anti-religious play in any way. It is rather an exposure of human nature in a specific aspect, that there are people who put on a cloak of humility or a cloak of piety, and inside are very much not that. Calls back some, perhaps, passages from the Gospels. the whitewashed tombs, if you will. But this, of course, is a comedy. So there's this great passage where Dorine, who is the maidservant to Orgon's daughter, Orgon decides Tartuffe is the only one he trusts, and he's going to have Tartuffe marry his daughter. His daughter, of course, is in love with Valere. Everybody in his family, except his mother, hates Tartuffe. They can see right through him. So he's going to have his daughter marry Tartuffe, and he goes, "Oh, say you'll do this." And she just can't even respond. And so her maid is the one. He goes, I've never been more serious in my life. And she goes, the maid goes, ha! Daughter, I mean it. You're to be his wife. And again, the daughter's not responding. It's her maid. No, don't believe your father. It's all a hoax. See here, young woman. Come, sir, no more jokes. You can't fool us. How dare you talk that way? All right, then. We believe you, sad to say. But how a man like you, who looks so wise and wears a mustache of such splendid size, can be so foolish as to silence, please. My girl, you take too many liberties. I'm master here, as you must not forget. Do let's discuss this calmly. Don't be upset. You can't be serious, sir, about this plan. What should that bigot want with Marianne? Praying and fasting ought to keep him busy. And then, in terms of wealth and rank, what is he? And so Doreen is very comical throughout the play. She sort of like speaks for the audience or speaks for characters who, because of social structures, maybe can't express their own ideas. And she's just marvelous. And so here's when Tartuffe finally shows up. Hang up my hair shirt, put my scourge in place, and pray, Laurent, for heaven's perpetual grace. I'm going to the prison now to share my last few coins with the poor wretches there. And the maidservant, dear God, what affectation, what a fake. And so we certainly have a dramatic entrance. It's just the worst. Hang up my hair shirt. Come on. So, things transpire where they keep trying to convince Orgon, like, Tartuffe just tried to not only is he going to marry your daughter, he's trying to seduce your wife. And that seems to be the only time when he's not faking, but who knows? He's such a creep and liar. And they tell Orgon this, and, I don't believe that happened. I can't believe Tartuffe would do something like that. And so there becomes, then the plot of the play is around, can we ever expose this creep for who he really is? Do we have to, make it happen in front of Orgon's eyes to let him see this? And then, of course, Orgon, because he trusts Tartuffe, is willing to, sign over his house and all of his wealth to him. So then, even if you do expose Tartuffe, how can you confront him if he holds this, sword of Damocles above you and can end you? And so that of course, is the comic aspect of the play. Is just everybody trying to figure out how do we catch this guy out, and how do we show this bumbler who can't read between the lines what's going on, and then what do we do if we ever can catch him out, because he owns the house and money now. And of course you can see the modern parallels. You can see parallels to a modern reader of, what happens if we trust a person who then betrays us, or we trust someone and it's revealed, in our careers, with finances, with family relations, we trust somebody who ultimately then can actually harm us in a very real way. And it creates this visceral aspect to Tartuffe that isn't necessarily in all of Molière's other works, or even in the other French, tragedies of the period, where this feels a little bit more real. It feels like real people could be hurt, not just pseudo demigods, or these specific, courtly characters. Now, the tragedy, or the comedy, this is as close as Molière gets to tragedy. I haven't read Don Juan, but this feels like it could be a tragedy, and then it veers at the end. It induces a type of dramatic whiplash with a very I thought it, and then when I was looking at some scholarship around this play, I was like, oh yeah, everybody else picked up on that too. There's a very Deus Ex Machina moment, and remember, this play was performed for King Louis XIV. He got to see the plays. And he patronized Molière. So there's a very intensive Deus Ex Machina moment, but it feels like it's going towards tragedy, and then the Deus Ex Machina rips it back around so that maybe things can be good, life can go on. And I think there's an admission from Molière that most of the time that Deus Ex Machina moment is not going to happen in real life, and the Tartuffe can win, or the Tartuffe can triumph unharmed, and that does happen. And so it feels very modern, but there's this incredible bit where we really see who Tartuffe is, and he's speaking to Elmira, Orgon's wife, who he's been trying to seduce. And if heaven is all that holds you back, don't worry. I can remove that hindrance in a hurry. Nothing of that sort need obstruct our path. And she responds, must one not be afraid of heaven's wrath? Madam, forget such fears and be my pupil, and I shall teach you how to conquer scruple. Some joys, it's true, are wrong in heaven's eyes, yet heaven is not averse to compromise. There is a science lately formulated whereby one's conscience may be liberated. And any wrongful act you care to mention may be redeemed by purity of intention. He goes on, assuage my keen desires and feel no dread. The sin, if any, shall be on my head. And she's coughing, trying to send signals, He's saying what we said he was saying. And it goes on, if you're still troubled, think of things this way. No one shall know our joys, save us alone. And there's no evil till the act is known. It's scandal, madam, which makes it an offense. And it's no sin to sin in confidence. And so we really see he is an imposter, he's a hypocrite, he's a liar, he's completely selfish. And the phrases he uses still seem like they could work. The way that individuals will try to persuade or convince others of things that the other person does not want to do, and how they're constantly trying to use their words to manipulate. So it's a great play. I really loved it. I loved Wilbur's translation. If you've never read Molière, when the bookstores reopen, look for, or the libraries reopen, look for a copy of the Wilbur translations of Molière. This volume has both the Misanthrope and Tartuffe. They're fantastic. They feel, when you read them, you feel the language just flowing, and it moves so quickly in a way that sometimes drama doesn't. Sometimes drama feels very stagey. This doesn't. It just rips. It feels, in terms of film, kind of that aspect of Robert Altman films, or even earlier like Howard Hawks and His Girl Friday, where to make to get the whole script into the movie, they cut lines and had characters overlapping their lines. So as one character is finishing a line, the other character is already starting a line, and it just is this non-stop shuttlecock, back and forth. If you think of a tennis match or a badminton match, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's a real delight to read. It's very fun. I don't find, that this is an indictment against religion. It's an indictment against bad people, and good people are celebrated within the text. So it's very much maybe Midrash adjacent. So this is Tartuffe. I'm Jack. I hope everybody's doing safe and well. Happy belated Mother's Day to anyone. We had a great time here with my wife and FaceTime with my mom. So see you all later.